Imagine this, an ancient city way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And it's not built on solid ground. Nope, it's built on a coral reef. We're talking huge stone buildings and canals that look like they're just rising straight out of the ocean. This incredible place is called Nan Madol.
You can find it on the shore of an island called Pohnpei, way out in Micronesia. And this place is so mind-blowing, people have called it the Venice of the Pacific or even the eighth wonder of the world. I mean, just look at it. These massive, overgrown ruins, you can totally see why. It's like something straight out of a movie.
And that right there is the big mystery. The question that stumped experts for ages. How on earth did they do it? Think about it. Super remote location, no evidence of modern tools like pulleys or metal. So how did they build an entire city out of gigantic stone logs on a coral reef of all places? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this mystery, you first have to understand just how massive this place is. Because honestly, when you start looking at the details, it just seems impossible.
So this isn't just one big temple or something. No way. Nan Madol is a huge, sprawling city complex built on a whole series of man-made islands inside a lagoon. Even its name, Nan Madol, means within the intervals, which is just perfect, right? It's talking about the network of canals that are basically its streets.
Get this, the city is made up of 92 of these artificial islands. 92! And each one was built by hand, stacking these enormous stones on the reef to make a platform, and then filling it all in with coral rubble. Just try to imagine the amount of work and coordination that would have taken.
And we're not talking about some little village here. The main part of the city is 1.5 kilometers long. That's almost a mile. This was a massive, massive project, a real capital city.
So, when you're faced with an engineering feat this incredible, it's really not surprising that the local Pohnpeian stories about how it was built, well, they involve a little bit of magic.
The city's original name was Sao Nan Lang, which means Reef of Heaven. How cool is that? It really sets the stage perfectly for the amazing legend about how it was made. All right, so here's how the legend goes. Twin sorcerers Olisipa and Olisohipa show up in a canoe from some far-off mythical land. They're searching for the right spot to build an altar for the god of agriculture. And when they finally find this place, they don't start hauling rocks. Oh no, they use their magic and, get this, a flying dragon to lift these huge stone logs and fly them right into place.
It's an awesome story, right? But when we shift from myth to what historians and archaeologists have found, a very different picture starts to take shape. This one is all about power, politics, and just incredible human effort. So let's talk about the dynasty that was really behind all this.
So yeah, archaeology tells a much different story. People were living in this area as early as the 1st century, sure, but the giant stone city we see today, it wasn't built overnight by a dragon. The megalithic construction started around 1180, and it went on for more than 400 years. This was the work of the powerful Saudeleur dynasty, and just recently, in 2016, it was finally declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
And this really gets to the city's true purpose. On one hand, it was the political and religious center for the Saudeleur rulers, who controlled about 25,000 people. But it was also a really clever way to maintain control. They actually made all the rival chiefs come and live in the city with them. Talk about keeping your enemies close, right? It was like a beautiful prison. And on top of all that, it was a sacred burial ground for the elite.
I mean, the scale is just breathtaking. What you're seeing here are the walls of Nan Madol, the royal mortuary. This is where the very first Saudeleur ruler was buried. These walls are 25 feet high, and they're built from stone logs that weigh several tons apiece. It's a fortress, a palace, and a tomb, all rolled into one.
So this is where it gets really interesting. You have this clash between legend and science. On one side, you've got flying dragons. On the other, what does the actual evidence say? Which brings us right back to our main question. If it wasn't a flying dragon, then how did they do it? How did they move these unbelievably heavy stones? Okay, so the scientific explanation is, in my opinion, even more incredible than the magic. Archaeologists figured out that the builders actually quarried these basalt columns from a volcanic plug on the other side of the island. Then they probably floated them over on huge rafts and used a super clever but really tough system of levers, rollers, and built-up ramps to get them into position. It wasn't magic, it was just pure human determination and genius engineering.
But, you know, the flying dragon story wasn't the last time people tried to explain this place with something supernatural. A more modern myth popped up, the idea that there was a whole other part of the city that had sunk into the ocean. People took this theory so seriously that back in 1978, an official archaeological survey was launched to search for, and I'm quoting here, 2 legendary submerged prehistoric cities right off the coast.
But what did they find? Well, after a bunch of surveys, the answer is pretty clear. Those mysterious pillars people saw underwater, they actually pulled one up and studied it. Turns out, it was just natural coral. And that so-called sunken city in a blue hole? Just a natural sinkhole. The bottom line is, to this day there has been absolutely zero evidence of any man-made city under the water there.
And because it's so mysterious, it's probably no surprise that Nan Madol has become a magnet for all sorts of other modern theories. We're talking everything from lost continents to ancient aliens.
Yeah, this goes way back. In the 1920s, writers started saying Nan Madol was part of the lost continent of Mu. And if you've been on Netflix recently, you might have seen it featured in the show Ancient Apocalypse, which pushed some, let's say, alternative ideas about how old it is and who built it. Now, to be fair, we have to look at the whole picture here. The response from the mainstream academic community to these kinds of claims has been pretty strong. Experts on Pacific history have called them, and this is a direct quote, incredibly insulting to the ancestors of the Pohnpeian Islanders. They argue that these theories basically ignore the amazing accomplishments of the local people and are often tied to old, racist ideas from the 1800s.
And that really brings us back to what's most important. Because when you strip away all the myths, the old ones and the new ones, what you're left with is something so much more powerful. You're left with an incredible human legacy.
I mean, just look at this. You can see the detailed, careful way they stack these stones, how they interlock, and you can just feel the massive scale of these walls coming right out of the lagoon. This wasn't built by magic or aliens. This was built by people. It represents countless hours of hard work, brilliant planning, and a really deep understanding of their world.
So that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Maybe that story about the magic dragon was just the best way people back then could explain something that seemed completely impossible. And maybe, just maybe, the true wonder of Nan Madol isn't about some secret magic or a lost civilization. Maybe it's about the absolutely staggering power of human achievement.